Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Hometown Heroes. I'm Mike Kenichi. Very honored tonight because we have one of the greatest high school players in the state of Connecticut to ever put on a uniform. He was a 4-year starter at New Canaan High School, 1,000-point scorer, uh, captain, you name it, he did it all. And it is my honor to introduce to you Tyler Sweeney. And Tyler, I want to thank you for coming on tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Been looking forward to this, so it should be good.
So, Tyler, let me ask you this first off. I think you started playing basketball when you were probably 6 or 7 years old, but let me ask you, where does your basketball background come from? I mean, did your father play when he was a kid? I mean, how did that love for basketball begin?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think for me, basketball happened to be the last sport I tried. And growing up, I didn't think I was too coordinated. Played wiffle ball, swung and missed in the backyard. Played flag football. Couldn't pull a flag. Transitioned to tackle football, would be pounded into the ground. And then I was like, all right, my parents were like, I think you're out of sports. One left to try is basketball. And second grade, it just sort of happened, and I picked it up pretty naturally. And I'll always remember second grade, made the all-star team and for the second grade YMCA rec basketball league. And from there, I was like, oh, this is fun. I'm good at it. It's fun. So, and took it from there. And then, kept playing tackle football for a little bit, and baseball maybe throughout middle school, but from primarily from then on out, it was basketball. And it's ironic because I come from a football family. Both my brothers were football players. I have a cousin that plays on the Buffalo Bills. Dad played college football, so I really come from a football family that basketball is their second sport, and I was basketball one, which is sort of cool.
Right. So if I did my math right, I would say you probably began playing in 2006, 2007. So
yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. So, that's a long time to be playing basketball. I mean, you had a lot of, you gain experience the more you play, but you had so many years under your belt by the time you went to high school, which was definitely probably, beneficial to you. But let me ask you, did you like it right away when you started playing? Because, usually that first year, it's a lot of learning the drills, the basics of stuff. And, little kids that age don't really like to do that stuff. I mean, did you have the love for it right away?
I did. And I'll tell you, I mean, just I think the reason being is just because I was naturally good at it from a young age. And then that's what sort of motivated me to work on it even harder. There's a reason I stopped playing baseball because they would pitch it to me. I would swing and miss, so just I think that's primarily the main factor that I was able to, make a layup. So, and from there on out, I was like, okay, this could be something. So, and of course, this brought me so much and fell in love with it from there on out. But yeah, 2006, 2007, that was the year where some things started to make sense for me.
Right. And let me ask you, Tyler, I know you said you stopped playing baseball, but, when you're a little kid that age, you play different sports, sometimes soccer, sometimes football, whatever it might be. Did you mainly just play basketball when you were a little kid?
Yeah. So second grade, I started basketball. I stopped tackle football in sixth grade, and then played flag football throughout middle school, but stopped tackle in sixth and played baseball. I think stopped fifth or sixth as well. And then from there on out, it was just basketball.
Right. And, Tyler, I think sometimes it's definitely not a negative to play a different sport because sometimes you don't want to just concentrate on one year round when you're a young kid. So you were able to kind of, play the different sports as a kid, which was good. But as time went on, I think you realized that, you had something in basketball and you really wanted to just focus on that.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing with that is, people say hindsight's 2020. And if I could go back now, I think I would try to play different sports. And that's because I think as I grew up, I transitioned in the game of basketball from primarily a shooter to a more of a physical player, sort of, scrappy. And so I didn't appreciate the contact until I was a little older. And of course, that sort of coincides with I didn't like being hit in tackle football until I'd already stopped playing. So if I could go back and do it again and then, I guess I'm a different person now than I was growing up. So maybe I would have felt differently back then. But I would have loved to, keep playing football, and even baseball as well, all three. But who's to say if I played all three, I would have had the success I did in basketball. So I guess it in the end all evens out. But one of the biggest regrets I would say is not following through with those.
Right. And, Tyler, you talked about your brothers playing football. When you talk about New Canaan, I mean, they have had a, tradition in football for many, many years. I mean, just a tremendous football school, not a bad basketball school, but football's always seemed to be like their bread and butter. And, it's not easy because a lot of times, basketball doesn't always tend to get the recognition. So, I mean, did you ever think about going back to football in high school, or were you just set with basketball?
I think I was set with basketball, and I think the reason being is I started to take it a little personally that football was so big at New Canaan High School, and being in Connecticut, lacrosse is big too. So basketball was sort of sandwiched in between fall football and spring lacrosse. So because of that, it was like all the athletes, most of the best athletes aren't going to play three sports, maybe stop at two, and their attention was rather going to be to football or lacrosse. And it's like, well, basketball sort of getting the raw edge of the deal here. And with that, it was always sort of tough. We play at home games, not too many people there. We weren't very good. But then when we would go on the road and play other schools, basketball's, a top sport at most high schools. And to go into a raucous environment on the road and then come home and play in front of your parents, that was something I know me and my other basketball-only teammates really strive to make a change. So that's probably why I was focused on basketball, because as a competitor, I took that personally and said, I want to make basketball relevant in New Canaan.
Right. And Tyler, let me ask you this. I know you said you made the All-Star team as a second grader, but, it's hard to really remember stuff back then. I'm sure you might remember your first basket, but to try to, break down that whole season, as a 6 or 7 year old, you're not going to remember everything. But how would you say you did that first season? Were you, looking back on it, were you satisfied how that first season went for you?
I'll tell you what, I haven't thought too much about my second grade playing in some time. But I guess if you're really when you stop playing, when you really reflect, it's sort of good to think, what made it start and what made that love work for you. And I don't remember too much of that season, but I can tell you what, every basket, every play, every pass of high school, I could tell you, anything, it could
Right.
be third quarter of a scrimmage sophomore year, and I'll tell you what the score was. So it's I don't know, it does stick with you for sure.
Right. So you played a few years of Biddy, Tyler, and then I believe fifth grade you started playing travel basketball, and I think you would play on the travel team, throughout fifth till you got to high school. Just first off, talk to me, number one, about trying out for the travel team as a fifth grader, and number two, playing travel basketball, because with travel basketball, Tyler, it really is travel. You go all over the place. You have to commit a lot of your weekends, sometimes your weeknights. So it's definitely fun, but at the same time, it's a big commitment for a young kid your age.
No, for sure. And I think that all stems from having fun with it. And if you're not having fun with it and you're not playing a lot or you're not winning, I think a lot of things play into it. But, if you're having fun, people are going to come to games and you're going to have fun doing it. So I think with that, we would play Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We'd play 3 games a weekend, just, more than closer to an AAU schedule than it was like a regular high school or college season. It practices twice a week. So it was 5 of the 7 nights a week. You'd have a game or practice. And we happened to be pretty good our middle school years growing up. And so it was a lot of fun. And I think because of that, it made me stick with basketball and made it worthwhile.
Right. Let me ask you this. Did you ever get tired of it sometimes, or the competitor and athlete and you just always wanted to compete and you just were happy to play no matter what?
And speaking of basketball as a whole, not just in middle school, I think there's definitely times where you'll come home and you'll kick the stairs and say, I am never touching a basketball again.
Yeah.
That'll last all of a couple hours until you wake up the next morning and then you start doing it again. So once you're in the trenches, you keep going. So.
Right. So talk to me about some of these travel teams, Tyler. Number one, what coaches did you play for? And number two, just talk to me about some of the teammates you played with over the years and, some games that really stand out to you.
Sure. There's so many. There's so many. I'll start first with the coaches. Bobby Spezzano is somebody who's most notably was my travel coach, and then from there, I started playing AAU in 5th grade under a coach named Doug Scott, prominent in New Canaan or Fairfield County basketball, I should say, and even in the state. And then so played AAU for him for a couple of years until Bobby Spezzano was my 8th grade travel coach, and that season went well. So I sort of jumped ship to his AAU program and played for him from 8th grade through my senior year, and so that was primarily on the AAU side. And then in terms of high school, Mike Evans was my coach freshman through junior year.
Right.
He left after my junior year, which isn't easy. Having a coach leave after going into your senior year, and when it's supposed to be your year, having to prove yourself to a new coach. But luckily, our new coach that came in, Danny Melzer and Mike Tisha, I had been familiar with them in the past. They had helped out in coaching AAU my junior year.
Right.
So I was very lucky in that sense that my new high school coach I had played for AAU for a year. So that transition was sort of seamless. So those were the coaches. And then in terms of teammates and notable moments, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Tim Russo as the first person that comes to my mind. I mean,
Right.
he was as big of a basketball nut in New Canaan as I am, and it's 2021, and I'll have him on the phone on a Thursday night and not doing anything, and so Timmy, I'll take you back to 8th grade at the St. Joe's High School Gymnasium, and James Cravano fouls out, Austin Bell fouls out. What do we do? It's Tyler and Timmy. We're playing Danbury. It's overtime, and we got to win. At the end of regulation, we're down 2. Danbury misses a couple free throws. Timmy comes down, 15-footer, knocks it in. Sauce. Go to overtime. And in the overtime, Timmy hits another big one. I hit a 3. We're about to win, but it comes down to 2 free throws. And I tell him that every time, to this day in 2021, I go and I look at him and I say, Timmy, do not mess these up. Make your free throw. I'm sure he steps up to the line, cool as a clam, sinks them both, and when we end up going to the championship game in 8th grade that year. So, I mean, that's just one of many stories, and to this day, it's 8th grade basketball. We still laugh about it. So.
Right, and we'll get to your college stuff and momentarily, but it's good to see that Tim's doing great things. He was a student assistant with the University of Tampa for 4 years, and now I think he's over at UConn, as a graduate assistant. So, I mean, he's really taken the coaching aspect, now that he stopped playing, and you could tell that he really wants to be either a high school coach or maybe even a Division I college coach someday. So it's nice to see him doing that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And he's been working really hard. I get all the updates from him. And I tell him, as soon as you get that head coaching job over at UCLA, you know who your number 1 assistant's going to be. I'm coming on over. So yeah, he's really working hard, and he's been up at UConn all summer and driving players around, just doing everything you got to do. You're sort of your first year on a staff, a lot of operational stuff, a lot of setting up lunches, but he's working hard because he knows that it's going to pay off in the end. So
right. And were there any other teammates that stand out to you, Tyler? Throughout your years, because I know, and we'll get to the high school stuff in a minute, but I know you guys necessarily didn't have a great record-wise throughout your career, but it was a tight-knit group that you guys, were like a band of brothers. You were really close. I mean, some other teammates that really stand out to you?
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, James Cravado, Austin Bell, in terms of a basketball perspective, would be the main 2 that stand out to me. I know those 2 happen to play other sports, but I mean, it was really those 2, and me and Tim were the quote unquote core 4 of our class. And we had the success in middle school, didn't quite carry over to high school. I guess we'll talk about it in a second, but playing with those guys every day was a lot of fun.
Right. And let me ask you this, Tyler. When would you, it's tough because you're a young kid, but when did you say to yourself, you know what, I'm pretty good at this sport? Like, was it maybe 6th grade? Was it 7th grade? Did you really start to think, I could do something with basketball?
Well, you know what? I actually think I've thought about this a little bit, and people say, look good, feel good, play good. And so I've always been sort of a modest sort of shyer person for people that I'm not comfortable with. And my 5th grade year, the basketball shoes, I don't know if you remember Nike ID. You could go online, you could customize your shoes. So my 5th grade year, my dad and I, we customized shoes. What shoe is going to look good? So we come up with a blue and yellow sneaker, as if that has anything to do with New Canaan red and black. But so that's the sneaker I wear, and I wear it in 5th grade, and then 6th grade I ordered another, but yellow and blue. Do it in 7th, do it in 8th. And I think as soon as I started feeling comfortable, okay, I'm going to be the person with the flashy shoes and really sort of stand out. I got to be comfortable with, that pressure being on me and not looking like, the kid with the flashy shoes that can't play. So I think from that was sort of a confidence standpoint that I was like, okay, I can wear these shoes. I can go out, I got something rolling here. And luckily I was able to sort of carry that through. And a town like New Canaan, where very small, went to a 1,200 person high school, everybody sort of has their sport. And I was the basketball guy. I was the kid in the high school that was synonymous with basketball. And because it wasn't that, mainstream of a sport, Tyler Sweeney was basketball. And that was sort of that. So there was some pride with that. And then there was also some pressure as well.
Right. And, Tyler, one thing about these travel leagues, AAU, I mean, they can be very exciting sometimes. I mean, the fans really get into it, obviously the parents do. And, there's times where the games are really intense and, the crowd gets really juiced up into it. So, I mean, as a young kid, you had to really, get a thrill out of being out there, like a little rush whenever you did something good. Say you hit 3 shots in a row and you start feeling it and the crowd's going crazy. That's the part that makes you want to keep driving to be the best you could be, right?
Oh, 1,000%, 1,000%. I mean, and I think you play because you love the competition, but I mean, I can think of numerous times from middle school having our parents and Timmy's dad screaming on the sidelines, and
yeah,
it would be raucous in the Saks Middle School gym to high school. There'd be the games that we'd have our student section there, really rocking. And even I remember my first ever game as a freshman. The student section was off the charts, and even into college and those student sections. It gives you some juice. It makes you want to play. And as an athlete, any sport, I think that's sort of what you live for.
Right. Tyler, as I got older, I gravitated more towards watching college basketball. The NBA didn't excite me as much as it did when I was a kid. But obviously, when we're kids, we always look up to those athletes that are professional players. Was there an NBA player that you really idolized as a kid that you really looked up to?
I mean, I certainly had my favorite players growing up. Dwayne Wade was always, my favorite player. Loved those early Miami Heat teams when they won in 2006, and being from Connecticut, diehard New York Knicks fan. Not much to root for sort of growing up there, but David Lee, Jamal Crawford is the reason I wear number 11, or did wear number 11, because of his time with the Knicks. So, I don't know if there's a player I necessarily looked up to, but I certainly had my fair share of guys that I liked.
Right. And, also as a young kid, you got to see those good UConn basketball teams, the UConn teams of 11 and 14. I mean, were you a UConn fan growing up? I mean, did you watch them, or were you more...
I wasn't necessarily a UConn fan. I'll say I'm the biggest UConn fan now, okay, because Timmy's over there. But no, I remember watching those teams, and it's like, dang, Connecticut's the basketball capital of the world. You have the men's team winning the national championship and the female team winning all their national championships. You're like, what's Indiana? Connecticut's the place to be for basketball. And Kemba, I mean, I remember his shot, and now he's a Knicks, so maybe you can replicate that with the Knicks. And Shabazz had his years, and Niels Gaffai, and Boatwright, and so yeah.
So let me ask you this, Tyler. Freshman year begins at New Canaan, and I'm sure you had no idea that you might play for the varsity as a freshman, but it did happen. You played varsity as a freshman. And let me ask you this, because for a 14-year-old kid, you want to be out there, you want to be on the court, but it had to be I don't want to say frightening, but it had to be, you had to be a little timid being out there that first year, because, you're playing with older kids and you want to perform because you want to be able to stay on the court.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, and that's sort of the difference between, I think, high school and college. Freshman year of high school, I think it was all mental. It was wow, these kids are older than me. I don't want to take my shots. I'm passing up shots for guys. Oh, you've been here longer. And that's more of a mental thing. And I know we'll talk about college in a little bit, but college is more of a physical aspect. You go into college thinking, I just scored 1,000 points, I'm the man. But you got to realize everybody, was the guy on their team going into college. And then when you play guys that are 22, when you're coming in as 18, you're playing grown men. And so I think it's more of a physicality standpoint going into college. But for high school, completely mental. As you said, I was a freshman. Got the didn't play a fall sport, so did the preseason with all the guys and played pickup with them, lifted with them. So I started to get to know everybody a little bit. But once that season started, it was like I got a 3. Started passing up shots you probably shouldn't pass up. And then you're not valuable if you're not playing your game, if you're not playing confidently, if you're not shooting the shots you should take, and you're playing hesitant, you're playing timid, you're playing passive. It doesn't matter how good you are, you shouldn't be on the court if you're going to play like that. So I think it definitely was a learning curve for me a little bit. Started playing the varsity early on as a freshman, and then just so I could get my confidence and swagger back in the middle of the year, I started to play a little JV, but both. And then back towards the end of the year, strictly varsity, obviously, for the rest of my career. So it's just definitely a mental curve. You coming in at 14, you don't have that confidence yet.
Right. And, Tyler, I'm sure it was fun at times, but it was probably difficult at times as well. But you got through that first season. Did you feel confident when that season ended that, you could really be a player for this program going into your sophomore year?
Absolutely. And I think my sophomore year, we were very excited going into the season. We had some, not to say the senior class, my freshman year, they were all great guys, but they weren't really basketball guys. And the seniors, my sophomore year, tends to be all basketball guys, a Claude Chandonnet, a Paul Hagopian. So I was like excited because those guys were into basketball. So I said, okay, maybe with the strong off season, we can sort of do something. And when we had Zach Allen on the team, or we thought we were going to have Zach coming back, who's now with the Arizona Cardinals, and and Mike Collins, we thought could be a pivotal part of that, but they sort of, veered off and stuck towards football, and it was really just, a limited amount of guys, and it didn't work out the way we had hoped, but it's the program was eventually turned around, by Danny and those guys. So, that's one positive to take away.
Right. And you had a good sophomore season, Tyler. So, I mean, after that year ended, you definitely are now, you're no longer the rookie anymore. You're no longer, that young kid. You're going to be part of that core. So, I mean, those first 2 years, though, I think really probably helped you gain so much, not only experience, but, knowledge and confidence that you could, really be a player the next 2 years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember my first start of my career, so my first game my sophomore year, we're at Trumbull High School. They're doing the starting lineups, whatever. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be introduced. Like, I'm going to high five my teammates. Everyone's going to be booing me. We're on the road. It's going to be great. I stand up, and as I stand up, my back heel hits the bench and the chair I was sitting on. It collapsed, goes boom, makes the loudest noise. So as I stand up, the chair falls over. I was like, oh no, I can't believe I just did that. The student section is screaming at me, like laughing, and I go and I high five everybody. It was a close game. I think we played them hard. We ended up losing. But I think from there on out, I was like, all right, let's settle down. Had a decent sophomore year. I think I played well for a sophomore. Still not the number one option. That was Claude. So I was still, sort of number 2 in terms of scoring. But going into my junior year, I knew that was going to be a big year for me. And I knew that now college is on the horizon, and no scouts are coming to New Canaan High School. So you got to have a big season and really take the next step there. And I think on a personal level, I had a pretty good junior year.
Right. And Tyler, let me ask you this. A guy I talked to, he was a big time high school baseball player. He loved baseball. But then as his son got to high school, his son, like you, loved basketball. And he went from, being this baseball guy to just loving basketball, watching his son play. Now, coming from a family that was mainly a football family, did your family end up loving basketball just by watching you play so much? I mean, would you say that basketball has become the sport they really love to watch now?
Yeah, I think basketball is definitely. I mean, it's a sport. I mean, like football, whenever it's on professionally or collegiately on the TV, it's going to be on, and then in the Sweeney household. And I mean, basketball. I mean, both my brothers grew up played basketball. And even through high school, and so did my dad. And but although football was the priority, basketball was always loved. So it wasn't that foreign that it was like, oh, this is a newfound love. But no, there was definitely a lot of basketball in the Sweeney household growing up. And you have to, if you're going to go on these AAU trips to the middle of Pennsylvania, or to Rhode Island, if you're going to be playing in the gym in the Rumble in the Bronx AAU tournament at 10 p.m. On a Thursday night, you got to love basketball.
Right.
So yeah, so it is liked in the Sweeney household for sure.
Right. So Tyler, junior year, again, not the greatest season, but you had a tremendous season, as an individual. Let me ask you, when junior year ended, could you kind of see that there was a chance you could get 1,000 points in your career, or you really didn't think about your stats too much?
I think obviously you're always a team first guy, and winning is number one. But I think it's for the people that say, stats, don't mean anything unless you win. They don't, and you do want to win first. But obviously they're always in the back of your mind, and
yeah,
of course, you want to be the best you can be. So I think going into my freshman year, I had 50 something points as a freshman. And keep in mind, we're only playing 20 games. We're not playing 4 or 5 games in the state, a couple games in the FCX.
Yeah.
We played 20 games a year, and that was it. We're not getting those extra sort of playoff games. So it was always a possibility, and sort of in the back of my mind that, okay, this could be it. But after that junior year, having multiple games, 30 a game, and I was like, okay, I'm really scoring the ball a lot as a junior. I think I averaged maybe 24, 25 a game as a junior.
Yeah, it was a great season. Yeah.
Yeah, and that my best scoring season by far. I was like, okay, it's in the realm of possibility. Even if I have even less of a season than I did as a junior, as a senior, 1,000 points was in the realm. And luckily, I was able to get it. And the thing about junior year, I didn't think it was going to start well. My second game, we played a holiday tournament. It was at Trumbull. Playing Staples, I had 2 points, and that game was not good. Going home after that game, a lot of screaming and yelling at the house. 2 points, not good. Gonna lost to Staples. So, and after that, thankfully, it picked up and got the shots going. Was pretty efficient, and unfortunately, the success wasn't there in the end. But on a personal level, it gave me a lot of confidence to play collegiately, and gave me the right path to 4,000.
Right. And Tyler, here's the thing. Like, again, you want the team to win, no doubt about it. But for a kid that's a junior in high school, you're probably 16 at the time. I mean, it had to be a good feeling to see that box score, Tyler Sweeney, 32 points, or Tyler Sweeney, 25 points. Because, I mean, you're playing the game. It's a team sport, but you're trying to be a good basketball player too. So when you're seeing that stuff, I'm sorry, even though, like, you want to win, you definitely do. You have to be proud to see that in the box score as well.
Absolutely. There was always the, let's check the new Canaan Advertiser. Let's check the Stanford Advocate. Let's see, if I made the paper, what the little write-up would be. So there was obviously some of that, and it is sort of exciting. You get to be, high school, it's, people say, oh, you're stuck in your glory days of high school. High school is a fun time. And it's, college. I mean, what I like to say about it is unless you're playing at Duke or North Carolina, and people, it's all about college basketball. If you're playing a D2 or D3, you're playing in front of, unless it's a big game, you got the student section there, you're playing in front of 100 people. And whereas high school, you're playing for your town, you're the talk of the town, you're in the local newspaper, people are going. It's high school's fun, So, yeah.
Yeah. So Tyler, senior year begins, and you're under a new coach. I think it was Danny Melzer. And here's the thing, Tyler, you obviously were going to play. You were a tremendous player. But one thing about when new coaches come in, sometimes the seniors indirectly get penalized because it's not necessarily their kids. They're going with the future. Right. Sometimes kids might get benched. Sometimes kids don't get a lot of playing time. So it's a tricky situation. So just talk to me how that was, because even though you guys got along very well with Danny, and, he did a great job with you guys, keeping the rhythm going. it definitely was a transition that's not easy at all.
No, absolutely. It's definitely a tricky situation, right? Because to say you're in high school and you have two kids, you have a sophomore and a senior that are both have the same skill set, same everything. Who's the coach going to play? Coach probably going to play the sophomore because he can develop him and he still has 2 more years after, right?
Yeah.
So with Danny, but Danny was very good at knowing winning is a priority and also building a program is a priority. And he didn't sacrifice one for the other. So I
Right.
think he did a good job saying, the seniors are the most experienced and probably give us the best chance to win. So we're going to play them. But at the same time, we're building a new program here. We're building a new culture. You got to spend, if you want to play, you're going to have to spend a lot of time for basketball. And I like to think that we were the first class that sort of implemented that philosophy moving forward. So then the younger kids would follow suit in that dynamic of a program to lead to success. And what he's done with that program is off the charts. Who would have thought? First of all, I like to take a little bit of credit for their state championship in 2019.
Yeah.
If we don't go 16-64 throughout my college career, they're not, or high school career, they're not making the Division IV the bracket. They're going to be in a higher level bracket. So I take a little bit of credit for having them make the Division IV state tournament. But with that being said, I mean, who would have thought, from the teams that we couldn't get out of our own way, only winning, 4 or 5 games a year, not even sniffing the playoffs in 2 years, being a top team in the league, making a run in the FCAC and going all the way to Mohegan Sun and winning the state championship. So testament to him, to what he's built with that program. And it's a culture now. It's a pipeline that the kids are coming in. They're playing fish with the JV, grooming, and then it's plug and play with the varsity and at a high level. So that's what you want. And they've had a good year, and even maybe I could say because my brothers have been on the team, so I've been following close. But even throughout college, every game that I can stream, I have it on and checking those guys out. So.
Right. And Tyler, it was only a 4-win season your senior year, but a couple of moments that stand out. Number one, I think it was senior night against St. Joe's. I want to say it was against St. Joe's. You got your 1,000th point, right? I believe that was the St. Joe's game.
Senior night,
and then right. And then number two, the last game of the season, you guys win that final game. And it was a little bittersweet for some of the seniors because he took a couple of the seniors out with about 6 minutes to go in the game. And that's not easy because it's their last game, but those guys were so unselfish. They just wanted to win that last game. They were going to do whatever it took to win. And, I thought it said a lot about some of those seniors who were willing to sacrifice themselves to get that final win of the season. So talk about that first, and then we'll get to the 1,000-point moment.
Sure. Yeah. So that final game at West Hill, I don't know what it was. Maybe we just, in that locker room beforehand, we looked at each other and we said, this is our last game. We're not making the playoffs. We have, nothing to lose, or if we make a bad play or miss a shot, we're not going to be benched. You got nothing to lose. We're going to have fun, and we play with confidence, and we really brought it to them. And I think, the seniors, if I remember correctly, did a great job in the first half, getting us off to a strong start. And then it was closing time, and the group that sort of gave us momentum in that second half happened to be, a group of younger guys out there. I forget who exactly was out there. But I just remember, being out there and looking around and say, okay, we got some younger guys out here now. This is my final game. Let's do it. And then a testament to everybody else, not, whining or complaining, that this is their last game. And then they sat the last couple minutes, and, it was then that's, I think that mentality, that team first mentality, that's something that Danny brought. And the fact that he was able to put that on all the seniors and the younger players moving forward, it was team first. And I think that was the start of something.
Right. So let's talk about your special night because, for an individual, that's a tremendous honor. And, Tyler, one thing, you touched on it earlier, how you never played a 21st game. So you played 80 games in your career. You had 50-something points your freshman year. So just, you do the math. I think that had to be even more special for you getting 1,000 points because you didn't need like a tournament game to do it. You did it in the regular season. And just talk about that night, walking out with your parents for that last time on the court, senior night. And even though you guys got beat by St. Joe's, you get that moment where you scored 1,000 points at home and you kind of get that standing ovation. That had to be, even though it was a loss, that still had to be just a special moment that you still remember to this day.
Oh, 1,000%, 1,000%. And to be honest, going into that game, I didn't know where I was at in terms of points. I knew it was senior night. I knew I was getting close. And John Winchester, who was assistant coach at the time, looks at me and, well, let me preface by saying this with the whole 1,000 points. Coming after my junior year, I knew it was a possibility.
Right.
So Mike Evans was fantastic. He was really great about it. He gave me the scorebooks, the official scorebooks of my freshman, sophomore, and junior year. He said,
"Oh, wow,
you're going to want these." I said, "Thank you." And I sort of had given those to Terry Dinan of the New Canaan Advertiser, who's, gave us so much coverage. And you got to give a lot of props to him that he was almost more excited than anybody that New Canaan basketball was turning around. And he was, really excited for me doing the 1,000 points, and he was keeping track of it. So him, Terry Dinan, and Winchester, they had sort of known, coaching staff had known. But before the game, Winchester was like, "You're getting close, Tyler. You're getting close. It could be tonight." And I didn't know if it was 4. I didn't know if it was 20. He just said it could be tonight. So I said, "Okay, we're going." I think I had the first 9 points of that game. We go on a 9-0 run. We start the game.
Yeah.
Feeling good. We're up like, I think, maybe 20 at halftime. Second half wasn't as good. You said we lost the game. We did. But I just remember, second half there, I had a good first half and it was all right, a couple points left. I'd look over to the bench. Winchester's 5 more. And I'd look at him. He'd go 3 more. I said, "Oh boy." And at that point, we're down in the game. You want it to be senior night. You're like, "I want to get this." Every time you're touching the ball, you're trying to score. And Melzer actually came up and said, you got, I think, 2 minutes. You rather said you got 2 minutes left, and we're gonna put in the younger guys, or you got 1 play left, something along those lines. So I was point away. They drop a play to me. I come, get a back screen from the top of the key, go sprint down to the block, and it's a post up. And I get a post up on a friend of mine, Omar, played AU with him, and did a little 2 dribble crab step and hit a little floater for 1,000. I was like, "Is that it?" And then then Bill Brown, who would do the PA for us, would say, "And with that basket, Tyler Sweeney scored his 1,000th point." Everybody stood up in the stands, clapped. It was a nice moment. And after that, they called timeout. We fouled, so I could come out of the game. Got a picture with Danny, our AD, Jay Egan, and teammates dapped me up, and then that was that. So it was special.
Yeah, and Tyler, I'm sure, like, in the moment when it happened, while you were happy, I'm sure it was relief too, because you're playing a game and it's hard, like, to appreciate it when it's happening, because you're trying to win the game. You're trying to do whatever you can. So while you were able to take it in the moment, I'm sure maybe a couple hours after you were home, you were able to kind of sit down and reflect on it. But I'm sure in the moment, while you were happy, I'm sure there was also relief as well.
Oh, there was a lot. I mean, I'll tell you what, each and every time I'd get the ball, I'd put my head down like a bulldozer, go to the basket, and I would get fouled. And it was just free throw after free throw after free throw. And be like, "Oh, is this one going to go?" And there was a lot of pressure shooting those free throws in that moment. I maybe, hit a couple and then miss a pair and then go 1 for 2, 1 for 2. So slowly ticking away at it. And then the last play, I was able to get that little turnaround. And we did lose. But senior night there, it was a special moment, being walked out on the court by my parents, and it was a fun night. And I remember after the game, Danny said in the locker room, "Great night for Tyler, but I know he would turn this ball in for a berth of the playoff," and that's 1,000% true. And having a ball in the trophy case at New Canaan High School, whenever I walk in, as great as that is, and saying, "Oh, there's my 1,000-point ball in the trophy case," and that's going to be that's really cool. And I do appreciate that a lot, but not being able to play. And what I think is the greatest day in high school sports is the first Saturday of the FCAC playoff. That 4 games a day was at Ludlow. I think now it's at Ward. And just 2 o'clock or 12, 2, 4, and 7, just having those games, and everybody would be there. 2 student sections, neutral court. I mean that's Timmy and I, we would get eliminated from the playoffs. His brother Colin, we'd sit and we'd watch those 4 FCAC games and be like, "Next year we want to be here. Next year we want to be here." And unfortunately, we were never able to get there. And I would trade in 1,000 and to play in one of those games. But I mean, man, it does feel good to have
Right.
that case.
And Tyler, let me ask you, what do you think was the problem back then? Do you guys just think you didn't have enough personnel? I mean, like not enough, height, whatever it might be. I mean, what do you think was the problem? Because like you said, you guys only came away with 16 wins in your 4 years. So what do you think ultimately was the reason the team wasn't very good?
I think it's a combination of some things. I think it's a combination of people playing other sports and not prioritizing basketball. I mean, we have a lot of our best players, a lot of our most athletic players would come in December, start playing, finish the season late February, March, whatever, and not touch a basketball again until the start of next season. And you have to play them because they're our most athletic, and they're going to give you the best chance to win. But when you don't touch a basketball for that long, you're slowly going to decline. And so I think a little combination of that, and I think a little combination of we just didn't have the mindset. And it was a lot of in the locker room after the game, we want to win, we want to win, we want to win. And it's not, dang, we've worked hard, we should win this game. And so it was a lot of, after the game, we're sad that we lost. And not, dang, we're mad. We're pissed we lost. We worked hard enough, we should have won this game. So it was that sort of we want to win, we're sad that we lost, instead of we should win, we're mad that we lost. And I think that confidence, that mental aspect was tough for us. And, and that's why it was a tough barrier to break. And I'll always say Canaan is the best pickup players. If you see him playing pickup, we're going to hang with anybody, but when it comes into a structured game and then the lights come on and the refs come out on the court, it was always sort of a mental thing for us in closing games as well. And then that's where that really shined through. So, yeah, a combination of those two things.
Right. So the 17 season ends. It's your high school career is over. You had a couple options where you could play college basketball. Ultimately, you would end up playing college basketball for a couple of years. But just talk to me about how you made your decision on what college you wanted to go to, and were there any programs that say Division II, Division III that were seriously looking at you to come to their schools?
Sure. Yeah. So I think for me, I knew I always wanted to play college basketball, but I just didn't know what level and where. And I think after my junior year was the start. And, I went to some camps the summer before my junior, but you have your junior year, the summer of your junior year, no college scouts come to Canaan High School, so you got to go play in big time AAU tournaments. You got to go play in prospect camps and academic camps and get seen that way. So for me, it was, I want to play, use basketball to get the best education I possibly can. And with that, some of the D3 schools, tend to be academically higher than some of the D2. So I knew it was okay. I want to go D3. And I knew I didn't want to go play as much as some of those NESCACs, high level D3. I didn't want to go play basketball at a small school in a cornfield in the middle of nowhere and take 5-hour bus rides to games. So I was like, that is not for me. If I'm not playing at Duke, chartering planes from game to game, it's got to be, the travel's got to be a little easier, and I want to be at a spot I want to be at. So, naturally, I started looking at some West Coast schools that had been reaching out to me. First, looked at Claremont McKenna, great school in Southern California. So for me, it was like, where do I go? I want to be at I have D3s or smaller schools. So if I'm be at a smaller school, I want to be, where things are going on. So naturally, Occidental came into the picture, and they liked me. I liked them. I was offered a roster spot there. I was recruited, and it sort of came to be that Occidental was the place in Southern California. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you did, very well there the first 2 years. I think you even got to the semifinal game, in the tournament with that team. And then ironically, I think you played Claremont, one of the schools you were thinking about going to. But you decide after your sophomore year, I think your body had taken a toll on you, and you decide, you want to just focus on school, focus on your career. But what was interesting was, Tyler, it's like the old saying, if you can't play it, talk it. And you became the lead play-by-play announcer for the men's basketball team your junior year. So just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So for college, it was one of those things where I come in as a freshman, played a little bit, but we had a lot of returners. Coach Newhall, great guy, stuck to a 7-man rotation. So sort of played some spot minutes as a freshman, nothing crazy. My sophomore year, also let me first by saying my freshman year, we ended up losing in the SCIAC semifinals to Claremont. So that was sort of a bummer, yeah, that was tough pill to swallow. But my sophomore year was sort of the 7th man, got some decent minutes. We ended up going to the SCIAC championship. We were a win away from going to the national championship or the national tournament, the 64 team national D3 tournament. But we lose the SCIAC championship to Pomona and Alex Preston, from Darien. So a little Connecticut battle there, and after that, over the summer, I had been really working hard. This could be a big junior year. It's sort of my time to play. But it was just, I had a hip injury and it was just taking too much. For anybody that says, Division III basketball is not the real deal. I mean, I'll tell you what, it's a full-time job, and it's, 6 a.m. practices for 3 hours and then lifts and if you want to be a good academic student, which you're not going professional, you're not going to go make money playing basketball.
Right.
You don't have good grades. So it's just basketball, school, rest, and it's, very little time for social life. And it's also very little time to figure out who you are and what you want to do after basketball. So I think for me, it was like, I love playing basketball. It's going to be a big year, but I was like, it's physically taxing on your body. It's a full-time job. And who am I outside of basketball? And in 2 short years, I'm going to graduate. And what do I have besides school and basketball?
Right.
Something where I was like, all right, I think it's, as much as I miss it, it was definitely the right decision. And to this day, I do not have any regrets, making the decision that I made. But I still love basketball. The guys on my team were my closest friends.
Right.
I didn't really have too many friends out because at a school like Occidental, it's a small school. Your basketball team, you're close. Those are your guys. Yeah. So I was still close with all the guys on the team. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick up the play-by-play. And one of the assistant coaches, Mike Wells, he would always set up the technical aspects of the whole thing. He's like, let it rip. So I did a couple sort of dry runs. He's like, you're not bad. And from there on out, whenever I could do it, I would step on the mic and let it rip. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun doing that.
Right. And let me ask you this, Tyler, you were affected like so many kids were your age with COVID, not just having to worry about, being safe and stuff, but not really being able to do anything. And, your senior year was basically just online. So you really didn't get to hang out with your friends much your senior year. So just talk about that. Was that like bittersweet graduating that senior year?
It was really tough because you're thinking, oh, it's senior year of college. This is my time. And then you don't have a year, So I was very lucky. My junior year, the basketball team had ended up losing. I think they lost in the semis. Didn't call the game. Was a little bummed about. So they ended up losing, and next thing you know, it's spring break and it's March, and me and my friends who happen to be on the basketball team, we spring break in Hawaii, and we have a fun week in Hawaii. So we go. It's spring break. It's great. Whatever. We walk out of class, get on the plane, go to Hawaii. First day, it's this coronavirus is sort of becoming a thing. Second day, school might be canceled. For a little bit. What's going to happen? Day 3, it was, we're going to be online for 2 weeks. The next day, the NBA postpones and shuts down.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, our last day in Hawaii, it's actually, you're not coming back to class. When we get back from Hawaii after our spring break, we all have to go home. I go back to Connecticut. Everybody goes home because we're going to be online for the rest of the year. So that was the start of it all. From things are great. We go on spring break, have a lot of fun. We come back from spring break and the world is shut down. So from that point on, it was home from March until the following August. And the school actually, Occidental had reached out and said, we're going to try to be in person. Because a lot of the bigger schools were hybrid last year.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, we're going to go for it. So me and 3 other people, we were going to live in the basketball house. So we signed the lease, and next thing you know, they said, actually, we're going to retract our statement. We're going to be fully online. But we had signed the lease, and a lot of the seniors decided to move out to LA anyways and live sort of off campus in apartments. So at least a lot of my class was sort of out near the school. And although classes were online and restaurants were shut down, we tried to make it as close to a normal year as possible. A lot of golf, a lot of movies, but it was fun. It was a lot of
Right.
fun.
And you graduate in this past May, and it has to be like a great feeling to know you got a college degree, because that's, you put in all that hard work for the last 4 years. You get your college degree. Were you able to like enjoy that? I know it was, like I said, you didn't get to be in school all year, but to get a college degree to graduate had to be a nice feeling.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to be fully honest with you. So I was an econ major and finished the econ first semester, took my final econ class. It's like, all right, well, now I just got to take classes and credits to graduate. I'm done with my major requirements. So I happened to take a lot of art classes, a lot of sculpting, a lot of painting, some printmaking, get those easy A's. But no, it was definitely satisfying to graduate. And again, California, the restrictions really heavy. We didn't think, of course, we're not in school. There's no way there's going to be an in-person graduation. But I guess because the school was small enough and it started to get a little better in May in terms of the vaccine, Occidental said, yep, actually, we're going to do an in-person graduation. If you want to fly in, you can fly in for it. If not, we'll also stream it virtually. Whoever wants to go can go. You can bring 2 guests. I had my parents go, and we were able to have an in-person graduation, which was pretty cool. So outside sort of my friend group and the sort of people that were living near campus, you would see people you haven't seen in a year and a half that were your classmates that, I haven't seen you since the previous March and when we were juniors, and now we're graduating together. So, that was a little crazy, but the fact that we were able to, after your college career, we were able to walk across the stage was pretty rewarding.
Right. So right now, Tyler, tell us what Tyler Sweeney's doing in 2021. I know the goal is to go to graduate school, but you're doing a pretty interesting job right now. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So started in Connecticut, went to school in Los Angeles, and now I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, doing this interview from Cleveland.
Yeah.
Never would have thought I would have been in Cleveland. But yeah, so coming out and graduating, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Obviously loved sports, so I thought, get a job in sports, work in sports. So I work for a company now called Teamwork Online, and in the simplest, we do a lot of things, but in the simplest term, we're a online applicant tracking system and job posting board for professional sports teams. So we have licenses with all 4 major professional sports leagues,
yeah,
NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, and most specific teams within that. Lakers a client, Cowboys, Knicks, etc. You name it, clients, and a bunch of smaller sports as well. All minor league, a lot of minor league baseball, NASCAR, PGA, you name it. A lot of professional sports clients, and they post our jobs through us, and we have sort of a database of people that apply through us, and we're that middleman. We're the applicant tracking system. We're sort of the job board where professional sports teams come and post their job. So pretty cool. And the coolest part about what I'm doing is there's only, we play a prominent role in the sports world because we're the primary sports recruiter for sports business, and there's only 11 people at our company. So I've been able to get my hands on a lot of things, see a lot of things, right. Which is pretty cool. So
that's really awesome. And Tyler, I know Chris Winkie won a Heisman at 28 years old now. You still have 2 years of eligibility left, so yeah. you could always return to the game somehow. Is there ever a thought of that, or would you say basketball is probably done as far as playing goes?
When I hung up the shoes after my sophomore year, I was like, I'm content with this being done. But if grad school is, which is what I want to do down the line, I do want to go to business school. So, I do still have 2 years left of eligibility. So never say never. I'll leave it at that. But yeah.
Right. Let me ask you, Tyler, is there ever a goal someday to, I don't necessarily say maybe a college coach, but do you hope someday maybe to be on a high school staff, maybe even if you're not the head coach, maybe be like an assistant somewhere just to stay involved, maybe come back to New Canaan someday and help out? Is there ever that goal to come back and be a coach?
I think my gut sort of tells me yes. I do love the game. I'm extraordinarily passionate about it. Whether it be in New Canaan or somewhere else. I mean, it's something that you grow up playing it. So for the love of the game that never leaves you. And I think the primary factor why I would say yes is the adrenaline. And it's,
Right.
my coach, it's the adrenaline that the game gives you. I'm sitting here, I watched a Knicks preseason game last night, Knicks Wizards, preseason, but I'm screaming at the television in my apartment like a crazy man on a Friday night, having Julius Randle hit a game winner. It's just that, that adrenaline that the game gives you. And to see, how much of an impact on my life it's had and all the fond memories, even though we weren't good, all the memories it's given me is something that you do want. And I see why Timmy, wants to be a coach. It's
Right.
something that doesn't leave you. So whether it be in an assistant capacity or, will it be my full-time job? I don't know, but staying around the game in some capacity and being on the sidelines is something that maybe, who knows when and where it'll happen, but I would say it's definitely a possibility.
Right. Tyler, let me ask you, I know it's probably hard to pick one thing, but what would you say was the most rewarding thing about basketball to you? Like, it may be, it could be individual stuff, team stuff, or it could just be what it gave you going into your everyday life. What would you say was most rewarding?
It's just all the off the court opportunities it gave me. Obviously, there's nothing like, we just talked about adrenaline. There's nothing like playing the game and being competitive and having fun physically playing. That's all well and good. But the biggest thing I took away from basketball, I'm the most thankful for, is, it got me to Occidental College. I wouldn't have heard of Occidental if it wasn't for basketball. So I got to go there. I got to meet some of my closest friends in the world at Occidental that I'll know for the rest of my life through basketball, because they were all my teammates. And the confidence that it gives you, from high school to college and everything that you can take away from it off the court is, and the doors that it opens and the way you think, you think like an athlete. And I think that's why I like where I'm at Teamwork Online, because everybody there is a former athlete. So everybody sort of has that competitive mind, thinks
Yeah.
And if you don't grow up playing a sport, team sport, you might not have that. So, but yeah, that's what I'm most thankful for basketball.
Right. And before we go, Tyler, what advice would you give to a future Tyler Sweeney who's entering high school, whether he or she wants to, play football, basketball, softball, whatever it might be? What advice would you give to that person who's wanting to, better themselves at what they do?
Oh man, I mean, I would just say keep it all in perspective. Have fun with what you're doing. I think a lot of times when you're young, it's a lot of pressure. I got to do this, I got to do that, and you think, oh, this is be all end all. I lose a playoff game as a sophomore in high school. The world's coming to an end. Keep it all in perspective. But at the same time, realize that don't let those moments go to waste, because people say it. I'm 22, and we think my athletic career is over. Who knows? Maybe I haven't come back down the line, but those moments go quick. So stay in the moment, have fun, don't put too much pressure on yourself, but really enjoy it, because at the end of the day, you can't play forever, and unless you're going to the NBA, NFL, MLB, whatever. For most people it ends after college, and if you're lucky, or excuse me, most people ends after high school, and if you're lucky, it ends after college. So stay in the moment, work as hard as you can, and really have fun with it.
Right. Well, Tyler, I really enjoyed this. First off, I congratulate you on a great career, because it really was a very special career. Number two, just listening to you talk today and, just seeing how, well prepared you are with everything. It just goes to show that, not only were you a great athlete, but you were an exceptional student and person. And it was really an honor for me to get to talk to you today. And I really do appreciate you coming on.
No, likewise. Thank you. This was a lot of fun for me to do. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed doing this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Folks, we talk about high school sports a lot. There's been so many great programs, whether it be football, basketball, volleyball, softball, baseball, whatever it might be. And there's always those special players that stand out to you. Now, think about New Canaan. New Canaan has been around forever, folks. And they had only had 3,000 point scorers in their history. And then came a special young man by the name of Tyler Sweeney. And he kind of, put his stamp on being one of the greatest New Canaan basketball players of all time, only the 4,000 point scorer in school history. While that's impressive, and it really is, it's never something that we should ever take lightly. I think the thing that stands out to me the most about this young man is just the type of person he is, the unselfish person he is, always thinking about his teammates. You heard him talk about some of his teammates and how he's been watching them since they've got out of high school. You know, he spoke about his friend Tim Russo. You know, he definitely loves seeing them excel more than he likes seeing himself, which really tells you about Tyler Sweeney. You know, we always talk about athletes and we idolize them and we really look up to them, but we really don't know what they are off the field. Well, off the court, Tyler Sweeney is just as impressive as he was on the court. For Hometown Heroes, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.